guys, today I'm going to show you an updated book collection video, and I did one last year. Since then I have reorganized this bookshelf and have obviously purchased more books. I thought I'd update you guys or update my channel. I still have the same bookshelf, and at some point I considered buying a new one. But a friend of mine came over one time and he said he admires how this looks very organic, and so I decided to just leave it be and buy it next time. But I think the next time is gonna be soon because obviously I can't fit any more books. I have around 200 books, and I used to have more, but this is just what I have right now. So I tried to organize it by genre. Some books are misplaced because obviously they don't fit. I can't fit every genre in one shelf, but I'll tell you all about it, even tell you about the books that I have not read. Let's start. Now, over here, I do have some textbooks right here. These are all law books, but I'm not gonna talk about those. Now, in here, this one is a special collection of books. I have a ginormous book right here. It's an antique. I believe it's from the early 1900s. I can't be certain. It's a dictionary. It's the Webster's New International Dictionary, and it's pretty old. It's leather bound, so it's pretty cool. And what's interesting about this book is it works as an encyclopedia as well. And from the few pages that I've read, I've noticed some interesting facts, like the flags of the world. At the time, there were only like less than 20, and there's also like a list of plants and others. And yeah, it's a really interesting browse of the past if you're interested in history. But of course, I have not read the entirety of this book. It's a dictionary. Nobody uses dictionaries anymore. But yeah, it's very thick. Like, look how big it is. It's the size of my hand and more. Next, I have some Michael Jackson books. I have an entire collection of Michael Jackson books because I am a huge fan. I have two special books that he wrote himself. So Dancing the Dream and Moonwalk. Dancing the Dream is a compilation of short stories and poems and lyrics and reflections by Michael Jackson. This is one of my favorite books, and this truly inspired me to write my own stuff. I read this I was very young. And then we have Moonwalk, which is his autobiography up until the late 80s. So it was before all the issues, the legal dramas. So the rest are just coffee table books and biographies. And this one is interesting. This is the Michael Jackson tapes. It contains a transcript of Michael Jackson's intimate conversation with his friend, the author. So it's a deep dive to his psyche. Most of the things I know about Michael Jackson are from this book. This is a biography by J. Randy Barbarelli. There is an updated version of this, which he published after Michael Jackson's death in 2009, but I only have the first book. Next, I have a few books on training, like health training, weightlifting. And then I have this language book. One summer, I was convinced I wanted to study Spanish, so I bought this book. I also decided to study Mandarin. I started last year, which carried over to this year, but I put it off because I went abroad and then I forgot about it. I got lazy to get back to it, so that's just pending. But my Mandarin books are at my desk. Then I have this art book, the single art book. This features Manet. I have two ballet books. Thought those were interesting. I have Avril Lavigne's biography, but this was premature. This was way back during the Let Go era. And then I have the Beyond the Story BTS memoir that came out last year, I think. or was it 2 years ago? I forgot. Next, I have my collection of Art of War. I love Art of War. I originally read Art of War when I was in college. The original copy that I owned, I lost, but I soon bought more. This one is very special. It's from Canterbury Classics. It not only includes the Art of War, but also several others. If you watch K-dramas or C-dramas, like historical dramas, some of these are very familiar, including the Doctrine of the Mean, the Great Learning. Yeah, they talk about that a lot. So this book is really pretty. Then I have also a collection of Art of War. So these are the 7 military strategy books. It includes a notebook, which is really pointless. Of course, it has the Art of War, 3 strategies of Wang Shigong, which I've read, and Wuzi. I don't know how to pronounce these, by the way. Wuzi. I read these 2. Love Wuzi. And then we got Wei Liaozi. This is a notebook. The Methods of the Sima, 6 Secret Teachings of Taigong, and Questions and Replies. So I'm soon to read the rest. I just got this collection, actually. Then I have my Friedrich Nietzsche books. I love Friedrich Nietzsche, so I have a few. I first started reading Thus Spoke Zarathustra. Now, this is very difficult to read. I think I reached 100 pages of this, and then I took a break and never got back. Then I read On the Genealogy of Morals and Ecce Homo this year, and I absolutely loved it, especially On the Genealogy of Morals. Then I recently got Beyond Good and Evil, which I wanted to read probably next year. So they're all together. So that is this collection of books right here. Now we're gonna move on to the actual shelf. I don't know yet how to do that, but so we're on the top shelf. Now I try to fit in everything, all of my classics here, but obviously I do have some classics that I've put together because they're from the same author, and I put them somewhere down here. But the rest of my classic books are up here. So let's start with my Collins Classic. I have a bunch from this edition because they're very accessible to buy and they're very cheap. So I have the Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde, The Prophet by Khalil Gibran, Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux, Dracula by Bram Stoker. I have not read this one. Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte, Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, 1984 by George Orwell, another copy of The Art of War by Sun Tzu. I wanted it to stay within this group of books because they look good together. Then we have Lucius Seneca, Letters from a Stoic. I have 4 books from the, what are these called? Like the Little Black Classics. Penguin Little Black Classics. I have 4. I have another Nietzsche here. Again, I want them together. Then I have this How to Use Your Enemies by Balthazar Grashon, Rilke, and then another Oscar Wilde. Now these 2 books are misplaced. There's a space here that I wanted to fill up, so I put this book right here. It's perfect size. The Adventures of Tom Sawyer. I read this, I was older, much older, so I did not appreciate it as some people did, as compared to when you read this book when you're young. I think you love it more. I have a compilation of poems by Emily Bronte. Then over here I have Sherlock Holmes. I love Sherlock Holmes, Volume 1 and Volume 2, so this is the entire novel, collection of novels and stories. Then I have 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. There's gonna be a movie out on Netflix, I heard. This book, everyone loves this book, but it bored me to death. It's so hard to read. Then I have 3 books from this edition. The Little Prince by Exupéry. I love this book. 3 Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas, and Madame Bovary by Gustave Flaubert. I don't know how to pronounce it. Then over here, I have a bunch of philosophy books in the middle. So over here, we have Frankenstein, more Sherlock Holmes, more Oscar Wilde, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. A lot of people love this book, but I actually didn't. We have Candide by Voltaire. I have not read that one. The Great Philosophers by Stephen Law. I love this book. The Book of Disquiet by Fernando Pessoa. If it's a 100-page book, it would have been my favorite book ever. But then I got bored. Got this beaten up copy of The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand. Got the Dialogues of Plato, which I recently read. I got 2 Robert Greene books. I categorized this as philosophy, so it's in here. I love Robert Greene, but his books are this thick usually, so I prefer the concise versions. So we have the 48 Laws of Power and the Art of Seduction. Then we have The Gift of Akbar. This is by Ogmandino. Jonathan Livingston Seagull by Richard Bach. We had 2 Fitzgerald books, The Catcher in the Rye, and of course To Kill a Mockingbird. I actually have not read To Kill a Mockingbird, so it's still waiting for me up here. And oh, this is The Turn of the Screw, but it's the large print editions meant for kids by Henry James. It's a horror book. Now we have the second shelf, which is entirely fantasy. There's more fantasy here because they're from the same author. I want to put them all together, but the rest of my fantasy books are here, so I'll show you. Of course, we have the Harry Potter series. Some middle grade books are here as well. This is a recent book that I bought. I have not read this. This is Wuxia. It's translated from Chinese. So A Hero Born by Jin Yong. Dragon Book. This is an anthology. Dragon Keeper. I love dragons. This is one of my favorite books. Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe. The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This is my only Neil Gaiman book. The first book from the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, The Lightning Thief. I'm currently reading these 2 books. That's why they're in here together. So Daughter of the Moon Goddess by Su Lin Tan. I was reading this first, and then the dialogue is killing me. I hate it, so I got bored. Then I decided to read another classic book, The Count of Monte Cristo by Alexander Dumas. But I believe this is a abridged edition because it's so tiny. Like, I doubt that that's the full length. Over here, I have this butterbeer mug. I have my Mockingjay pin down here. Do you remember this? Is this a Mockingjay pin? I don't know, like the Catching Fire emblem. Then I have my Slytherin bookmark, which I got from the Wizarding World of Harry Potter. I was a Slytherin, and then I took it recently again, the test, and I found out I was not a Slytherin. I think I was Hufflepuff now. Yeah, I think it's funny. Okay, so I have the Slytherin keychain because I really thought I was Slytherin for a long time. Then I have the Deathly Hallows necklace. I also have a Shadowhunter rune necklace in here, but then it broke. It's right there. Now these are books that I read when I was young and loved, so I kept it. We have Restore Me by Tahar Mafi. This is the 4th book from the Shatter Me series. I originally have the first 3 books, which I loved back when I read it, but I lost those copies, and then I was at the bookstore and I saw that she continued the series, so I bought this. This is apparently the 4th book, but yeah, I grew out of my young adult phase, so it wasn't for me anymore, but I still have it. Furthermore, again by Tahar Mafi, I put them together. I wanted to read this, but I forgot. I haven't read this one and this one. Then we have Divergent by Veronica Roth, the first book from the trilogy. The Fifth Wave by Rick Yancey, again the first book from the trilogy. The Giver by Lois Lowry. We got The Wicked Deep. I loved this trilogy growing up. So Switch, Torn, and Ascend by Amanda Hawking. She used to be my favorite author. Daughter of Smoke and Bone by Laini Taylor. I loved this book. I thought it was so rebellious to read at the time. Books by Christine Cashore. This is pretty boring, but this one is the best young adult fantasy ever. It's Graceling. This duology as well I really loved back then when I read it, by Alison Goodman. So Eon and Iona. The first book, Throne of Glass by Sarah J Maas. Have not read that one, unfortunately. Then I have more dragon books. So Dragon Spell, Time for Dragons. I have the first, no, this is the second and third book from the Inheritance trilogy by N.K. Jemisin. She's such a great author. I want to read more books by her if I can find the time. I have the first book from the Mistborn trilogy by Brandon Sanderson. I really want to read this. I recently got it. The first two books from the Inheritance series, I think it's what it's called, by Christopher Paolini. So we got Aragon and Eldest. The Priory of the Orange Tree, I have not read this. This is thick, by Samantha Shannon. Now, a lot of people don't like this book, but if you look on Goodreads, a lot of people did. So I'm not sure about that. I was kind of skeptical to buy this, but then the cover blew me away and convinced me that it should be in my bookshelf. So over here is the start of my adult fiction. So general fiction. I have some classic books because I want them to be together. They're from the same author. And some modern poetry. The rest of my adult fiction are down here along with my non-fiction books. So modern poetry. There was a time when all I read was modern poetry. I think 2017-18 it was such a big deal. I wasn't an exception. I fell into the trap and bought and read a few, but it didn't stuck with me. Nothing like left such a big mark. I specifically remember enjoying these three books by Pierre Jonty. So Him, Her, and Her Volume 2. The Secret Society by Donna Tartt. I'm not really a fan of dark academia books. I think it's a great book, but I just don't think it's for me. I'm not the target market. This is A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor Towles. This has a really good premise, but the execution is really bad. It's pretty boring, but it had potential. The Remains of the Day. I love this book. I thought I wasn't gonna love it. I was bored for a few pages and then it just absolutely blew me away. Memoirs of a Geisha by Arthur Golden. Now this is an old novel. It's very special to me for high school reasons. A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. Again, a lot of people love this book. I did not. Got The Godfather by Mario Puzo. Now this, I originally watched the movie and then I wanted to read the book, so I did. And to be honest, the movie is so well made that it fails in comparison to the book, which is very rare. I mean, that's just my opinion. Educated by Tara Westover. I didn't finish this book, so this is still in my to be finished book. To be finished someday book. The Missing World by Margot Livesey. I have not read this one. Be With You by Takuji Ichikawa is one of my favorite books growing up. It also made me cry at some point. Now, I have my Herman Hesse collection right here. I love his books. I also have Siddhartha, but I lent it to a friend, so it's not here temporarily. But we got Beneath the Wheel. I really love this book. Damien, of course, Steppenwolf, and Narcisse and Goldemund. I have not read these three books by Herman Hesse. I just wasn't in the mood, but I have it. We got Pictures Metamorphosis, which is a short story compilation, and then Magister Ludi, or otherwise known as The Glass Bead Game. So then we have The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is hidden from the rest because this to me is a disappointment. I know a lot of people enjoyed it, but I don't know, I just didn't like it. We got the special mentioned books, Cassandra Clare, featuring Cassandra Clare. She used to be my favorite author ever, and I read all of her books at the time until I outgrew the story and her writing, I guess. I have all of the Mortal Instruments books and then also the Infernal Devices books. Also managed to get some of her other books outside the series. I have the first book from the Dark Artifices trilogy, which is the third series that she wrote. That's when I stopped reading her books. Oh, this one is the first book from the Magisterium series. The Iron Trial. She co-wrote this alongside Holy Black. I have not read that one. And this one. So anyway, we have the Shadowhunters Codex right here. An illustrated history of notable Shadowhunters and denizens of the Downworld. This is a picture book. I have the movie tie-up, the Shadowhunters Guide. We got the Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. Have not read this one. Got the Bane Chronicles. I love Magnus Bane, the character. So this is his point of view, his story. Again, the first book from the Dark Artifices trilogy, which I have not read. Clockwork Angel, which is the first book from the Infernal Devices. Then Clockwork Prince and Clockwork Princess. I love Clockwork Princess. If I were to choose my favorite book from this, it's Clockwork Princess. And then we have the Mortal Instrument series. So City of Bones, City of Ashes, City of Glass. City of Fallen Angels, fourth book, City of Lost Souls, and the last book, City of Heavenly Fire. To be honest, this one is a disappointment. If this was better than this one, I would have continued on with the series, I think. But then this really disappointed me. I did not enjoy it, so I stopped reading altogether. I have the special 10th anniversary edition of City of Bones, which is so pretty. Let me show you. This is such a pretty book. Like, look, it's so pretty. I keep a rose in here as well. Now the last shelf is very interesting because I have DVDs and CDs. Now kids, this is how we watch movies back then. So I have just a lot of Michael Jackson basically. Michael Jackson #1s, Live in Bucharest, Romania, The Wiz, This Is It. We got the Michael Jackson Life of an Icon. Got Avril Lavigne's concert. We got the Hunger Games trilogy movie. And then we got Divergent, Mortal Instruments, my favorite series ever, Nikita Season 1, complete Season 1 and Season 2. Then we got CDs. Now this is all Michael Jackson CDs. Paramore, the band, which I was a huge fan of, and Avril Lavigne. Now this one at the bottom is an album by The Rose. It's a Korean band. Now behind that, I have the rest of my adult fiction books. Again, some classics here because they're from the same author. We have Dan Brown, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons. I bought these two recently. I want to read them. They're secondhand books. Got Meech album, Have a Little Faith. I have Paloquelo books. I have 4 over here. I used to have more, but I lost them. Got Veronica Decides to Die, which is my favorite Paloquelo book. Murakami books. Love Kafka on the Shore, Norwegian Wood Not So Much. Got Chinese Cinderella. And my Dostoevsky book. I love this author. I love his books. There's just something about his characters that I hate and love at the same time, but you can't stop reading them. So you have The Idiot, which I haven't read yet. I tried, but it's too political and I gave up. Notes from Underground, which is my favorite book by him. And then Crime and Punishment, of course, and The Brothers Karamazov. This book is like a Mexican telenovela. I can't put it down. Now this is just a jar with old chocolates and candies. Now I just use it to keep these books up as a bookend. So if I get more books, I'll put them here. Behind the second layer, there's the last layer of books. So there's a pile of books here. This is actually a Sudoku intermediate level notebook. I have the beginners one, which I'm currently answering and playing with, but this is the intermediate level. Then I have 4 history books. I wanted to read more history books, like historical basically. I have China After Mao, No Limitanghe, which is a Filipino novel written by Jose Rizal. This is a translated edition. First Voyage Around the World and Marcos Legacy. Very controversial regime in the Philippines. And then I have my non-fiction books. So this is pretty random. I have I Would If I Could and I Can by James Hockey. I think that's the name. Who is it by? James Hockey. Yeah. Purpose-Driven Life, everyone has this book. Creative Writing book. 101 Essays That Will Change the Way You Think. I don't like this book. A lot of people do. The New Health Rules. This is actually 101 Things I Learned in Law School. I don't like that book. Criminal Masterminds, very interesting book. Pep Talks for Writers and the Art of Thinking Clearly. It has such a long title, I don't want to say it. We got Rich Dad's, what is this? Increase Your Financial IQ by Robert Kiyosaki. He's also one of my favorite authors. I read his first book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, in college. How to Get Along with Difficult People. We got You Can Negotiate Anything by Herb Cohen. Crazy Like Us, I love this book by Ethan Waters. The Untethered Soul, everyone is raving about this book, but I actually do not see why. I do not agree with most of what he said. Got Ego is the Enemy and How to Win Any Argument. The Intelligent Conversationalist. This I recommend. It's jam-packed with information. Everything you need to learn. Like the basics of every subject there is. Mind Games, interesting read. What If by Rondell Monroe. Actually have not read that one. Into the Magic Shop. And The Definitive Guide. The Definitive Book of Body Language. Very interesting read as well. So that is the bookshelf, you guys. I'll see you next year, I guess, to update this.